The windows open and I know immediately I'm not home. Only a trio of sleepy town crickets instead of our chorus on the hill. Tip creak down a not my hall to the bathroom and mind meander towards a thought that scuttles out of reach before I stop it. No worries, I am still rum happy. This is the foil for the next afternoon. Windows still open, doors open all day. A buzz about Charlottesville, barely cutting through our tipsy Midwestern, Caucasian, moderately affluent, celebratory young people haze. So that when I look up pictures, it feels like waking sober in the day. Like a slap in the face. Like we are privileged enough that we can care, but white enough to not have to. The gaggle of girls and guys in the next room play a game about deception, and it's funny. They can hold oppression at enough of an arm's length to make it play because nobody hates their people. Nobody threatens their daily life. Nobody looks at them with any extra suspicion, knifed on like peanut butter. There are not daily effects of systemic anything for them to wade through in their waking hours. No, we can wake drunk in the night and everything is at peace, benign, rum-drunk warm with a trio of crickets to sing us back to sleep. I am not saying we do not care. I am saying we are not forced to. I would like to say I no longer let thoughts scuttle out of reach to hide beneath suburban counter edges and conveniently tuck under rugs. It is time to lay things bare, to shake our carpets out in the wind, to be moved when racists threaten our country, to wake sober in the afternoon and not be lulled back to sleep. Thank you very much. And I want to thank all the three ladies who read before me too. I feel very honored to be in their presence and have my voices be with theirs. As Rex mentioned, I'm a little new to the poetry community in Lincoln, and so I'm still writing around a little bit, trying to find my voice or what I want to be present in my poems. And one thing that I've kind of stumbled on is this big stack of notes that I took because I visited my grandfather, who was in the service, and he tells these fabulous stories, and he's always dropped little hints about how he would love to have those stories written down, but he's not a writer. And I said, of course, Grandpa, I'll come listen to your stories and take notes and write them down. And I ended up, after a week, with a stack of notes and lots of intimidation and no clue how to tackle any of it. And so recently I've been revisiting, because I have not written anything about them. But I've been revisiting because before I left, he told me, you know, even more than having these stories written down, I'm excited to see what someone who listened to them has to say about them. And so I've taken that on and thought, okay, I'll write some poetry. So this is a piece of a story that really stood out to me from my grandfather. This is actually my maternal grandfather, so not the one that Rex referenced that has passed away. He's still alive, but he was in the service, and so this is a piece of his story. This poem begins with a quote from Chad Hansen, but the poem is titled, "What My Grandfather Left in Japan." So the quote from Chad is, we don't come all the way back from a pilgrimage, we return different. He tells me first of his time in Cuba, on shore, so sea leg intoxicated, someone higher up had restricted him back to the boat as insubordinate, where he lingered just sober up enough to climb through a porthole along a rope back to where the streets were flowing with excitement for young, uniformed Navy men. Across the dark wooden table, he grins this memory to me, his now standard uniform, retired leathery desert skin, and a breakfast militarily rationed from his doctor to protect the beats left in his large, low-voiced heart. The scenes are easily an origin story from an epic saga, even his first time on the ship as near death as you could hope for a hero. What catches my ear through the bravado, a scene told from Japan instead, unlike its before and after. Maybe it's the eye of the storm. I think my grandfather may have fallen in love with rural Japan, or fallen in love with the little village town near their port station, or fallen for the rice paddy motorbike drives he'd trace along curving hills that felt like a new world he didn't know had existed back in the ice lake town he grew from. Or he might have even fallen in love with the girl. It's difficult to tell because he's telling this story to his granddaughter, the one who adores her grandmother more than anyone, and his large, quadruply stinted heart can be carefully delicate between moments, but from the way he is talking, I recognize the fondness folded into his voice. I know there's nothing more intimate than when a person shows you their home place, takes your hand and pulls you into and through and around all the nooks and crannies only a native can know, until you really can't tell if you love the place or the person or the newness of yourself, because they are all melted into each other like a candle with wicks burning both ends. I know this because I've done this too. Danced the slow dance sway of tourist falling for a place, tourist falling for my guide, tourist falling for who I am becoming because of now. In the wide street monument town, at the edge of a Cyrillic desert, concrete slab blocks lingering as apartment homes, but every 2 miles a place to live and celebrate and eat ice cream. Then again, in the narrow street people town, in the heart of a Buddhist forest, brightly colored fabrics trailing as clothing, but every 2 miles a place to linger and remember and drink hot spice chai. These are places I have never fully returned from, and knowing that, I am tempted to book a flight to Japan to find the lingering pieces of my grandfather, to see what he left propped up next to a rented motorbike, or still and quiet in the shadows under the family table he guested, or buried into the marble glint of a young woman's eye as she helped him see things he'd never seen before. My grandfather has whole thought landscapes inaccessible to anyone who now sits at his own Sunday dinner home table, since he's gone somewhere and never completely returned like me, and I'm unsure whether that makes us more full and happy or more distant from home. If my grandfather ever loses his grip on his own here and now, I hope his mind takes him perpetually back to the hills of Japan, wind in his hair, young, handsome man smile on his face, ocean in his ears. If he ever loses the ability to recognize the very people he has taken a lifetime to love, may he always have enough Japan left to always feel at home. So that was kind of a fun way to explore myself and things that I've known through a story that my grandfather told me. At this point in my writing, I'm very much starting from a place of self-reflection and self-knowing, but always trying at least in a little bit to connect that in ways that other people can find self-knowing, or other ways that I can know people. So this next piece is a little longer, but it comes from a place of a little bit of conflict within me, and so, as all people who write know, writing is a way to kind of find yourself in those things. So maybe another piece of background that's important to add to what's in the bio is that I live on 20 acres with my husband and our 2 dogs, and we do not have any children, despite being married for 6 years. So that's a piece to know about this piece. And it's titled, "I have planted for myself a house with no windows." Part 1. I have never intended to be a mother. I assumed it would happen, sure, in the inevitability of a married plainswoman. In my early 20s, I wrote poems for my future children, like breadcrumbs back to a younger maiden me, trying to at least foreshadow a transformation into matriarchy that felt wholly mysterious and outside of my own ability to begin. While drinking coffee at 2 a.m. in the dorm lounge, I imagined myself a quiet, warm, earthy mother of sons, giving softness, feeding curiosity, kneading bread through the morning while the kitchen is cool, sneaking poems under pillows as I tuck in tired bodies at the end of a long day, writing a future for myself, thinking I could write nurturing into my bones, thinking I could write poise, thinking I could write generosity of spirit onto my fingerprints, thinking I could write desire to mother into the missing splices of my DNA. But you must plant what you intend to grow. I am not kind. I am quick-tongued and insecure. I am not warm. My fingers chill in the summer shade. I intrigue myself with characters while not knowing in the slightest how to shape them. I am lazy in the morning and awake all night. I am not habitual. I scatter my thoughts wild like seed. I do not know how to plant in rows. Often I am tempted to whisper into the spaces of light socialization, I am barren. The shame of physical underperformance seeming a lighter burden than the shame of being emotionally deprived. I question the depth of my own femininity. Am I really a woman if I do not want to mother, do not want to life give, do not want to grow a child? Why is my womb not aching to be filled? Other women hold within them the glowing sunrise of a miraculous new day. I am only the burning noon sun casting harsh shadows and a lingering taste of salt sweat on my upper lip. What is left of woman when you take away mother? What is left of fire when you take away heat? Arctic with no ice. What is left in the dome of the sky with no blue? A house without windows, nothing to open and catch the breeze. Part 2. Because there are no little ones in the house, I wake in the morning with time to write. I can prepare myself for a day in 20 minutes. I can sleep through a night. I can drink a glass of anything at 3 in the afternoon. I can ignore the obnoxious children in the grocery store and smile at the cute ones. I look back at my own mediocre childhood, neither stress nor opulence, a vacation to Disneyland when I was in first grade. I was mothered and fathered appropriately. This left me with no desire to do better and no desire to replicate what had been done before. I am left looking for the patron saint of unmotherness. People can find pity, compassion even, for the barren women. They can admire celibacy. I leave them uncertain with my odd lack of zeal towards pregnancy. I am like a moon in the daytime. Like lukewarm soup, I am a dull pencil. I am waking to the sound of a coyote's howl at midnight, awed by her wildness, yet unmoved to investigate, and so you drift back to sleep. Part 3. I have been watching the swallows teach their babies to fly. Your father built a ledge for their nest. He can nurture without being mother. And they have been swooping since spring, diving into evening glows like it's what their wings were shaped for. Now the young have spent the past week preening on our railing, and there is no doubt their mother is proud. My mother is always proud of me. I have no one to be proud of but myself. I look for a place to put this pride, carry it around in a basket on my head, store it away in an airtight Pyrex in the back of my fridge, hang it out to dry with the herbs, and crush a little between my fingers when I need an aromatic boost, stuff it into rain clouds and let it sprinkle down onto the dry afternoon crust of droughted prairie. I worry about becoming selfish if I have no children to teach how to fly. Part 4. I am a house with no windows. I am fire with no heat, Arctic without ice. I am the dome of the sky with no blue. I am what is left of woman when you take away mother. There is no one to follow the breadcrumbs back to a maid in me. I do not know how to plant in rows.